Gustavo Fring, the Chicken Man. One of the most terrifying villains in television history, and yet you'd never know it from looking at him. That polite smile, that calm demeanor, the community fundraisers. Gus was a master at hiding the monster underneath. What made Gus different was the cold calculation behind every single kill. While Walt was reactive, emotional, often sloppy, Gus was the opposite. Every death served a purpose. Every murder was part of a larger plan, and that plan, 20 years in the making, all for revenge. Across Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, Gus was responsible for over 40 deaths. Some by his own hands, others orchestrated from a distance. Today we're covering every single one, from a tortured animal in Chile to the final showdown that took his life. And trust me, some of these are going to surprise you. The Coati, where it all started. So before Gus was the drug kingpin we know, before Los Pollos Hermanos, there was just a kid in Chile with a homemade trap. He caught a Coati, and here's the thing, he didn't just kill it, he kept it alive. Let it suffer for a long time.
The merciful thing would have been to kill it. I kept it. It lived for quite some time. I believe you will wake, Hector.
Gus mentions this casually to Hector years later, almost fondly, like it's a normal childhood memory, but it's not. It's deeply disturbing. This wasn't about food or necessity, it was about watching something suffer, and about having that power and using it. This is our first real look at who Gus is underneath everything. Even as a child, there was something cold there, something calculating. And decades later, that same mentality would define how he treated his enemies. Kept them alive, making them suffer, and making them watch as everything they love gets destroyed. The Coati was just the beginning. Arturo Colon. Fast forward to Better Call Saul, Season 4, Episode 2, Breathe. Arturo was just a mid-level guy, a lieutenant working with Nacho for the Salamancas. Nothing special, not particularly smart or dangerous, but he ended up making a fatal mistake. See, Nacho had switched Hector's heart medication, causing his stroke. Gus figured this out and saw an opportunity. He could use this to force Nacho into working for him. But he needed leverage, something that would make Nacho understand there was no way out. That night, Nacho and Arturo went to the Los Pollos Hermanos chicken farm to pick up their drug shipment. Arturo, emboldened by Hector's absence, demanded 6 packets instead of the 5 Victor and Tyrus had laid out. After a tense standoff where Nacho even cocked his gun, Victor relented and gave them the 6th packet. As they walked back to their car, Arturo was bragging about making Gus's men piss in their pants.
That's how you do it. We had them piss in their pants.
That's when Gus emerges from the shadows. In one of the most brutal scenes in Better Call Saul, Gus attacks Arturo from behind, putting a plastic bag over his head. With Victor's help, they hog-tied him, zip-tying his hands and legs, while Tyrus held Nacho at gunpoint, forcing him to watch. The bag was zip-tied around Arturo's neck. There was no escape. Arturo struggled, suffocating slowly, and Nacho had to watch every second. When it was finally over, Gus leaned in close to Nacho.
From now on, you are mine.
This is Gus at his most ruthless. Arturo's death wasn't about Arturo at all. He was just the tool Gus used to claim ownership over Nacho. It's cold, calculated, and absolutely terrifying. And honestly, it worked perfectly. The Espinosa Gang, wiping out the competition. Here's where we see Gus's strategic mind at work. The Espinosa Gang was operating in Juarez, getting in the way of business. Rather than negotiate or work around them, Gus decided on a simpler solution: eliminate them. All of them. But here's the genius part. He got the Salamancas to do it. Marco and Leonel, the cousins, along with Nacho, carried out a coordinated massacre. 2 gang members were stabbed to death, 1 was shot by Nacho, and then the cousins went through the rest like a force of nature. In total, about 27 members of the Espinosa Gang were systematically hunted down and killed. This is classic Gus. He achieves his goal, eliminating competition and securing territory while keeping his hands completely clean. The Salamancas get the blood on their hands, they take the risk, and Gus gets exactly what he wanted without lifting a finger. Business-minded brutality at its finest. Don Juan Bolsa, when your ally becomes a problem. Don Juan Bolsa was high up in the Juarez cartel, basically the middleman between the cartel and guys like Gus. For years, he helped facilitate the relationship, kept things running smooth. But as Gus's revenge plan got closer to the endgame, Bolsa became a liability. So Gus arranged for the Mexican Federales to raid Bolsa's compound. Official law enforcement operation, at least on paper. During the raid, Bolsa was shot and killed. Clean, efficient, and impossible to trace back to Gus. To everyone else, it looked like bad luck or a legitimate bust gone wrong. But Gus had orchestrated the whole thing, removing another person who might have figured out what was really happening. Tomas Cantillo, the kid who shouldn't have died. Okay, this one's complicated and honestly pretty dark. Tomas was 11 years old, working for two dealers under Gus's organization. These guys were using kids to sell drugs and carry out hits, which is already messed up. When Jesse Pinkman's friend Campo gets killed by Tomas, it starts this whole chain reaction. Gus initially told the dealers to stop using kids, but then Tomas ended up dead anyway. Shot by the dealers, possibly on Gus's orders, to tie up loose ends or maintain control. We don't know for sure if Gus directly ordered it or just let it happen, but either way, it does fall on him. The kid's death pushed Jesse to go after the dealers, which forced Walt to run them over with his car, which set off the whole conflict between Walt and Gus. An 11-year-old kid dead because he was in the wrong place in Gus's empire. It shows that Gus's calculations didn't have room for mercy, not even for children. The cartel assassins, protecting the operation. After Walt killed those two dealers and everything went sideways, the cartel wasn't happy. They sent assassins to New Mexico to take out Gus's people, shut down his operation, and send a message. But Gus had Mike Ehrmantraut, and Mike was very good at his job. Mike intercepted and eliminated at least 4 cartel hitmen, clean professional kills, one shot multiple times in the back, another in the head. These weren't personal for Gus, just business. Threats to the operation needed to be neutralized, and Mike handled it. What's interesting here is that while Gus was planning to destroy the cartel leadership, he was simultaneously defending his territory from them. Playing both sides, staying 10 steps ahead, all while maintaining that calm, professional facade. The cartel thought they were fighting back, but really they were just giving Gus more justification for what came next. Victor. The box cutter scene. Alright, let's talk about one of the most shocking moments in Breaking Bad. Victor had been working for Gus for years, loyal, reliable, and he did what he was told. But he made 2 critical mistakes. First, he was spotted at Gail Bedeker's apartment after Gail was murdered. Potential witness, potential liability. Second, he tried to prove his worth by cooking meth himself in the super lab, showing that he'd watched Walt's process enough to replicate it. If Victor could cook, then Walt and Jesse were replaceable. The scene in the lab is pure tension. Walt, Jesse, and Mike are there, knowing someone's about to die. Everyone thinks it's going to be Walt or Jesse. Gus walks in, doesn't say a word, puts on a protective suit, carefully and methodically. Then he picks up a box cutter. He walks toward them, the silence is suffocating, and then he grabs Victor. Not Walt, not Jesse, Victor. Without a word, Gus slices his throat open. Blood sprays everywhere, Victor stumbles, choking. There's nothing he can do. He collapses in front of them, dying on the floor of the lab. Gus cleans up, changes his suit, and then drops the coldest line in the series.
Well, get back to work.
The message was crystal clear, to Walt and Jesse. This is what happens when you step out of line. And to any potential investigators, Victor's gone. The only witness to Gail's murder just disappeared. 1 kill, multiple messages, that's how Gus operated. And honestly, it's still one of the most terrifying scenes in the entire show. The Cartel Massacre. 20 years of patience. This is it. This is what everything was building toward. 20 years of patience, planning, and playing the long game, all for this one moment. Let me back up. In the 1980s, Gus and his partner Max tried to get into the business with the cartel. They met with Don Eladio, and it went horribly wrong. Hector Salamanca shot Max in the head right in front of Gus, forcing him to watch his partner, his love, die. Eladio spared Gus, but the message was clear. You work for us now on our terms. So Gus spent the next 20 years building his empire, making himself indispensable to the cartel, all while planning the perfect revenge. During season 4 of Breaking Bad, it finally happens. Gus brings a gift to Don Eladio's compound, a rare bottle of Zafira Añejo tequila. The cartel leadership gathers, they celebrate, and Gus proposes a toast. Everyone drinks, Eladio and all his capos down their glasses. The tequila was poisoned. Gus had taken a special pill beforehand that delayed the poison's effect, giving him time to escape. But everyone else, they were dead men drinking. Don Eladio realized what was happening, charged at Gus in pure rage, but the toxin hit him hard. He stumbled, fell headfirst into his own pool, and drowned while unconscious. Then there were the capos, at least 10 high-ranking cartel members, all poisoned. Bodies littered the compound as the toxin spread throughout their systems. 20 years. 20 years of playing the loyal distributor, of bowing his head, of pretending to forget what they did to Max. All of it led to this one perfect act of revenge. The cartel that took everything from him was dead. It's honestly one of the most satisfying villain victories in television. Cold, calculated, and absolutely devastating. Werner Ziegler, the engineer who knew too much. Now we jump back to Better Call Saul, and this one's honestly heartbreaking. Werner was a brilliant German engineer that Gus hired to build his super lab under the industrial laundry. That lab that would eventually produce Walt's blue meth. Werner was good at his job, professional and talented, but after months working underground, cut off from the world, Werner got homesick. He missed his wife, so he left the construction site without permission to see her, just for a little while, and that was his death sentence. See, Werner knew too much. He knew where the lab was, how it was built, what it was for. If he talked, even accidentally after a few drinks, Gus's entire operation could be exposed. Gus couldn't take that risk. He sent Mike to handle it, and this killed Mike inside because he actually liked Werner, respected him. They developed a kind of friendship, but orders were orders. Mike took Werner out to the desert at night, let him look at the stars one last time, and shot him in the back of the head. Werner's wife never knew what really happened. Mike had to lie to her, tell her Werner died peacefully, but the truth was, Werner died because he made one human mistake in an inhuman world. That's the thing about working for Gus. Lalo's compound, the assassination attempt. When Lalo Salamanca became Gus's biggest problem, Gus didn't mess around. He sent a team of mercenaries to Lalo's compound in Mexico with one mission: kill him and everyone there. The attack was coordinated and brutal. Ciro, one of Lalo's men, was shot dead. Miguel, another employee, killed. Cecilio the gardener, gunned down. And Yolanda, Lalo's cook, a woman who'd been loyal to him, murdered. The thing is, the mission failed. Lalo survived through a combination of skill, luck, and pure survival instinct. He fought off the attackers, turned the tables, and escaped. But everyone around him died. For Gus, this was supposed to solve the Lalo problem permanently. Instead, it made things worse. Lalo went underground, faked his own death, and started planning his revenge. And because Gus thought Lalo was dead, he let his guard down just enough for Lalo to get close. Sometimes, even the most careful plans fall apart, and this was one of Gus's rare miscalculations. It wouldn't be his last encounter with Lalo Salamanca. Lalo Salamanca, the one who almost won. Lalo was different from every other Salamanca. Tuco was a violent psycho, the cousins were silent killers, Hector was old school brutal, but Lalo, he was smart, charismatic, and terrifyingly patient. He was the only one who truly scared Gus, and for good reason. After surviving the assassination attempt, Lalo staged his death using a body double and went completely underground. He spent months planning, investigating, piecing together what Gus was really doing. And eventually he found it, the super lab under the laundry. Lalo's plan was brilliant. He sent Kim Wexler to Gus's house as a distraction, pulling Mike and his security team away. Then he infiltrated the laundry, got the drop on Gus, and forced him down into the unfinished lab at gunpoint. He had won. He was recording video proof for the cartel, proof that Gus was betraying them. All he had to do was pull the trigger. But Gus had prepared for this possibility. He'd hidden a revolver in the lab. While Lalo was gloating, letting Gus give his final speech about how much he hated the Salamancas, Gus was positioning himself. He kicked a wire, cutting the power, and the lab went pitch black. And then he fired. In complete darkness, Gus emptied that revolver, shooting blind into the blackness. Lalo fired back. More shots, more experience with guns. By all logic, Lalo should have won this fight. Even Tony Dalton, the actor who played Lalo, said 9 times out of 10, Lalo would have won. But this was that one time. One of Gus's bullets hits Lalo in the throat. The most dangerous Salamanca died choking on his own blood in the darkness, just feet away from exposing everything. Lalo's death was Gus's closest call. Pure luck that his aim was true, but in the end, the last Salamanca threat was eliminated, and Gus's revenge was nearly complete. Marco and Leonel Salamanca, the cousins. The cousins were legendary. Marco and Leonel, Hector's nephews, were these silent, deadly enforcers who dressed in matching suits and killed without hesitation or emotion. They were scary as hell, and when they came north to kill Walter White, everyone knew blood was about to spill. Marco died first, during that insane parking lot shootout with Hank. Hank barely survived, but he managed to shoot Marco in the head. Now here's where Gus comes in. He'd orchestrated the circumstances that led to this confrontation. He tipped off Hank about the cousins' presence, their target, and their movements.
I need you to listen very carefully. 2 men are coming to kill you.
He couldn't kill the Salamancas himself without drawing cartel attention, so he got Hank to do it for him. Pretty brilliant. Leonel survived the shootout, but was hospitalized with serious injuries. He was recovering, probably thought he was safe. What actually happened though? Gus ordered Mike to poison Leonel. Leonel died in that hospital bed, unable to move, unable to defend himself, completely helpless. 2 more Salamancas dead, and Gus's hands stayed clean. This is what made him so dangerous. He could make anyone into a weapon, turn any situation to his advantage. The cousins were supposed to be untouchable, and Gus made people eliminate them for him. The final count. So let's add it all up. Over the course of Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, Gus Fring was responsible for over 40 deaths. 1 tortured animal in Chile, Arturo suffocated to claim Nacho, about 27 members of the Espinosa gang, Don Juan Bolsa killed by federales on Gus's orders, possibly Tomas, the 11-year-old, multiple cartel assassins through Mike, Victor with a box cutter in the super lab, Don Eladio and at least 10 cartel capos poisoned at the hacienda, Werner Ziegler, Lalo's 4 associates at the compound, Lalo himself shot in the throat in the dark, Marco and Leonel, the cousins, and probably others we don't even know about. What makes Gus different from someone like Walter White is the intent behind every kill. Walt was reactive. Things happened to him and he responded, often making things worse. But Gus, every single death served a purpose. Every murder moved him closer to his goals. It was all built on revenge. Max's death broke something in Gus, and he spent 20 years turning that grief into a weapon. He built an empire, played the long game, smiled and bowed his head, while secretly planning to destroy everyone who'd wronged him. The cartel, the Salamancas, he systematically eliminated them all. But here's the thing about revenge. It makes you predictable. Gus kept Hector alive specifically to make him suffer, to make him watch as every Salamanca died. He visited Hector regularly to gloat, to remind him that he'd lost. And that obsession with making Hector suffer, that's what killed him. When Walter White needed to eliminate Gus, he used that obsession against him. He rigged Hector's wheelchair with a pipe bomb, and Gus couldn't resist. He walked into that nursing home confident, ready to finally kill the last Salamanca. And Hector rang that bell. The explosion killed Hector, Tyrus, and Gus. And in one of the most iconic shots in television, Gus walked out of that room with half of his face blown off. He then adjusted his tie and collapsed dead. Perfect control until the very end. Even after a bomb destroyed half his face. He maintained that composure for just a few more seconds. That was Gus, controlled, precise, methodical, right up until there was nothing left to control.